Anyone remember where we stopped last time? That's a disadvantage when Madhavan doesn't come. Otherwise she's like, oh, I remember.
Chapter 18, slok 6.
Yeah.
नहीं 6 तो नहीं 6 के तो कहीं आगे निकल गए थे. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we missed it last
Yeah.
time.
18 chapter 18 you got it right. It took us only 10 years, but so I'll give you two choices and you'd help me decide. We definitely done slok 14 and 15, in which he describes the 5 different forces that are constantly at play for anything that happens. Anything like we take ourselves to be the doer and own the outcomes, positive or negative, thinking, oh, I did this, aren't I good, or I'm just so stupid. I wish I had not done that. I'm so sorry. I'm so bad. All that, right? And the big revelation here towards the end of this whole sermon is that you're just one of the 5 equally contributing factors. Therefore, don't own too much. Don't get too excited, but don't also get depressed. I remember we'd done that. Was one place, yes, sir.
The other 4.
Okay, so maybe that's where we pick up. Perfect. You solved the problem for us. You basically set us right. Why don't we? Obviously, is that okay?
Yeah.
It's just too important that any number of times. I mean, one time I had to ask you in what now the 13th, 14th year of Gita Yoga. One person has never missed a single Gita Yoga.
You.
Yeah. Madhvi, man. Like, this
Give it away.
So sorry.
Yeah. Okay. So, and that person has heard this stuff so often and has still is not bored of hearing it. So therefore, I think you'll indulge still. I mean, Nilabhai, is that okay?
We don't have
To start
do
there?
the full,
You know, Gita Yoga.
we don't remember.
I'm just gonna say
Can you open a can of worm and say, give me just one worm? You think they are going to
it is
No.
good.
We'll have to unpack it. No, I think you did us a favor. I mean it sincerely. Tell me if you only want to hear what 4 are and then just move on to the next place, or you want to unpack properly again.
I'm down with that too.
Yeah, right. I mean, the other place that I was going, the other choice where you think was later on, and a few verses after that, he says, Jnanam Geyam Cha Gyata, that listen, like anything that we learn, anything that we do, there's like 3, we think of 3 aspects of it. Here's the doer, here's what is done, and the process of doing. I am the learner, this is what is being learned, and the process of learning, right? You get it? Like there is an object, there is a subject, and there is a connectivity between the I am seeing you, therefore there is the I, there is the you, and the seeing. And the light is sharing that, well, it's actually only one. It depends on are you, because it's like a rope. You're holding one end of it and I'm holding one end of it. The rope there's only one rope. But because I'm on this side, I feel like we're separate. And so that was the other place. But because we're having 3 Gita, there's one in Marathi, that's tomorrow. There's one in Hindi that I just had earlier today, and there's in English. I jumbled up if I don't check up on where we were. So we can either start there, and then build up to this point and then stop there, or skip that and start here.
Start with
We can
the
start
5
there.
hours.
Okay.
I don't have to review.
Okay.
It's fine.
Don't feel guilty. Feel
It's
you.
good for outing us actually, honestly.
Yeah.
I recently used this concept after learning from you last time. I used to one of my friend.
Yeah.
Struggle. I said you can only control like 60%, 70%.
Yeah, you remember that.
Yes.
Jigarbai said 6. You're bringing us to number 14. This is like the snake and ladder. So we're at least starting at 14. So feel good about that. You're not the person who touched it anymore.
Because this factor is brilliant.
Yeah. So this is the 18th chapter, 14th verse specifically. I cite it quite often. 18:14, right? And it says there are 5. So I'm going to read the verse and then the Hindi translation and then we'll unpack it. It goes, Adhishtanam tatha karta karanam cha pratak vidham vividascha pratak cheshta daivam chaivatra panchamam. In Hindi it reads, इस विषय में अर्थात कर्मों की सिद्धि में अधिष्ठान और कर्ता तथा भिन्न भिन्न प्रकार के कारण और नाना प्रकार की अलग अलग चेष्टाएं और वैसे ही 5वां हेतु दैव है. So the big sort of broad canvas of this is that Arjun, the way the Gita starts, is saying, what am I doing? I am going to kill this. Because of me, all the women are going to become widows, like in chapter 1, right? Because of me, this is all, like, I can't do this. So he's absolutely owning all the negative, potentially negative consequences upon, as if he's going to, or that I would rather, this is all in the Gita, first chapter, I'd rather go away, find my cave and beg. That would be far superior. As if just by Arjun removing himself from the battlefield, everything will be all right. No one will be killed, the battle will be solved. Maybe because Arjun was the only real fighter, like the one who had a shot at winning. Bhim could have hung in for a while, but no one could have won it single-handedly. So he's saying the positive and the negative, I am going to be held responsible for it. It's on me, whether it's like the 1 week-long retreat that I facilitate, or this the job interview, or whatever it is, or my house, whatever it is. I'm the prime minister, country's going to hell all because of me, or look, 7.8% growth GDP second year, I am it. It's like, wait, hold on. None of it is any one person. There are 4 other factors that go into playing that, and therefore don't take too much credit. Don't also take too much discredit. And he enlists those 4. So the first one is adhishthana, which is like the founding principle, the foundation. So as an example last time, as a principle, as I said, gravity, for example, right? That whether if you, in your basement, your refrigerator broke, and the only way to get to the basement was through the stair, and so the guys came with a dolly, and there was only one guy, and he's trying to take the refrigerator down. And it's easy because all he has to do is it's the dolly. It's working with gravity. The point I'm making is it's working with the founding principle, the foundation. So it's easier. And he fits it and said, okay, I got to now take it upstairs. Is there any other way? And he said, no, this is the only way. You got to take it up. It's like, what the hell? How am I going to take it up? And it's not that man has suddenly become weak. It's not that man is a slacker. It's not that man has lost all his skills. I mean, nothing has happened. The same man. It's not that the dolly has broken. It's not that the refrigerator is like, hey, this one is humongous, that was tiny. Everything is practically the same. But the principle is now being worked against. Now you got to go pull it against gravity. It's going to be harder. So don't take too much credit that, well, look how quickly I brought the refrigerator down. Yeah, well, gravity helped you. You don't see gravity. You don't even think about gravity. You don't know gravity. You don't understand what gravity does. But hey, it's absolutely contributing to the success that you so effortlessly took it down. And the other way around, well, why is it now so hard? Because it's going against the calibrated, the original design of it. So then that's like the adhishthana is one example. There could be any, these are intangible. Heat, cold, like if it's cold, it's going to take you more effort to heat it up. It's not always only a matter of skill. If it is cold, if it is hot, it's going to take time. So the basic, very founding principle, right? We'll go through this quickly because we've gone through once, and I share just so you catch up on it, right? And plus, it's a really great, like a broad brush refresher for all of us. Second is karta, yeah. The doer does have accountability and responsibility for it also. Whether this doer is skilled, alert, prepared, conditioned, attentive, pick any quality that you want, like a perfect, like if you were to define, if I give you a flip chart and I said, all right, the two of you will go in rooms and define a perfect karta. What would a perfect doer show up like? And you'd throw something, whatever, right? It's prepared, always paying attention, always done his homework or condition or hers or whatever. And then we combine all of those and say, okay, this is a perfect karta. So that if perfection isn't a myth, let's say, then that's the second factor, right, of the 5. Adhishtanam tatha karta karanam. Like in that example with the dolly working properly, was the dolly itself 100 pounds, then it's not going to help. Or was it, maybe that's an overused example, but any appliance, equipment, instrument, device, that's karan. So for the upakarana, we even use the word upakarana, like, or karan is like what we wear earrings are called, right? Karan, like, and these are literally called devices. In Sanskrit, our ears, nose, they are called karan because they are devices. They're bringing the sound in, and they're bringing the smells in, and all of that. So that's the third factor. Was it functional? Was it properly designed? Was it well oiled? Was it even available? So adhishthanam tata karta karanam cha prithagvidam. Prithagvidam, the word separate, these are distinct, discrete. They each have their influence on the success or the failure of it. They will have their place, and they will have their effect. They will claim the success or failure, depending on however they set up. And so an astute, a vigilant performer, doer, an alert doer will pay attention to it. That are my tools, is my equipment, everything. Do I like tools make or break? Don't they? Like tools is like sometimes can be so be all and end all. Ask a surgeon, perhaps. There's like very tiny, minor instruments, but they can just like absolutely make or break. Vivedascha pruthak cheshta. So like these are different. Cheshta is the process. This is very modern science if you think about it. Process engineering or process technology or process thinking or system thinking. How is the process designed? Is it properly? And this is obviously my interpretation. The beauty of Sanskrit and the challenge of Sanskrit is that you can interpret it in different ways. The way I try to figure my meaning for myself is by breaking it down. Cha ishta. Ishta is that which is favorable. And we say ishta dev, ishta bhagwan. And so a streamlined process, one that will be efficient. So cheshta is are you following the recipe? If you ये सब बराबर gas भी है, cooking भी है. I've taken a shower. I wrote it down. But are you following it to the T? Right. So there is the process, and was the recipe itself good? Well, I followed it exactly, but if it was itself faulty, then you followed the wrong one. So you can apply it in your school, in your work process, at home, while mowing the lawn. Do you mow it against it or with it or against the grain? Or do you do sloping, slanting, cuts? Any aspect of anything that gets done, he broadly says anything that gets done, any outcome is driven by these 5 factors. So, cheshta, the process, and then I think it goes into the next verse. Daivam, yeah, that's right. The 5th one is, and there is this, the 5th one is the unknown. Deal with it. That even if you follow it's a perfect process that you follow perfectly, you're the perfect doer. These are all myths, but let's say that you are all that, and you're going with following the principle. The equipment is right, and still I didn't get 100%. Like like in India, like an exam, इतनी पढ़ाई करी, दिन रात किया, सब हो गया, लेकिन इसको 98.9% मिले, 99% मिले, 100% नहीं मिले. It's like there is that unknown. Maybe there was a heat wave, maybe the pencil broke, and you only had 3 seconds left. Who knows? Like who could have planned for it? You can plan all you want, but still stuff happens. So. The wise counsel, this is a practical God, this is a practical scripture, this is not a pontiff, and this is not just theoretical. It says, look, you're going to live a real life, a practical life. Stuff is absolutely bound to happen. In fact, count on it. That there is an element of the unknown always there that you don't know. That even with God by his side, Krishna in the Gita very sparingly sort of alluded that because I'm with you, more so that with you or without you, I am. This is going to come to an end, like adharma. So that there is a lot of empowerment in this knowledge. There is a lot of freedom in this. There is a lot of open space. There is a lot of relief in knowing this. That even if I was the perfect of the perfect, I can claim what 20%. Success to credit to it. I can only guarantee 20% because I have no idea at the last minute how the equipment that shows up is going to be or what circumstances I may have to go with or against, how the process is defined. So like a surgeon having to go to a completely new hospital for the first time in emergency surgery. It's a perfect surgeon, the best surgeon. The surgeon has never performed surgery there. I don't know what the equipment is like, what all the HVAC, whatever. Like everything was great, but the HVAC broke. And so it needed to be air conditioned at the time. So create some space, and more importantly, equally, give others space also. That no, he's not always bad, or no, it's not all her fault. But again, don't only look to others, think about yourself for yourself also. No, you also are not stupid or dumb or really horrible, and you're not all that great either. It's just the system's view it brings, like the whole system as a one whole, generally working towards achieving favorable outcomes, and I'm a part of it. And the more I align with it, the more, and that's Sharanagati, right? That's the 66th verse in this chapter that will come, possibly the most famous verse, Sarva Dharman Parityajya Mameka Sharanam Vraja, right? So it's like the more you align with this knowledge, the more you collaborate, cooperate, work with it rather than against it, the more freedom you'll feel. Though you'll feel more efficient, you'll feel more effortless, you'll feel more cheerful, you'll feel like, okay, well, this works. You'll also feel more carefree. And like everything that I recited during Dhyan, the carefree, stress-free, tension-free, anxiety-free, misery-free, just free. You're free, feel free because you're going with the system, and the system is going to carry you. Like a log of wood is not stressing out, floating on the river. Like what happens next? Like it's just going to go. The river's going to carry it, like a twig on it. So those are the five, Asha, back to your questions. Adhishtan is the very basic fundamental principles. Right? Karta is the performer, the doer. In the moment, who is working with that? Whatever equipment, whatever principle, in the moment, that one node, that one human, or the dog, or whatever happens to be, that is the performer. At this time, I happen to be sitting here and talking. And you happen to be sitting there and listening. It could reverse. In a while, I'll stop talking and you'll be talking. And so you'll be the performer at the time. So whoever at that moment happens to be performing, we're one, right? Right now, this unit, as if, is doing this performance. Then we're going to take turns. So Adhishtan, Karta, Karan is the tools of the trade, the equipment, appliance, instrument, take your pick, any of those, right? And then the process, Cheshta. Are you following a smart process? Is this an efficient process? Is this a stupid process? How many times in organizations have we experienced that it's a dysfunctional process? You got process consultants, process engineers. You got to do the to be process and the as is process, or the current process and where you want to be process. Like anybody gone through that whole nightmare with the brown paper bagging and all of that, the millions of dollars ending up in like a 40-slide deck, PowerPoint, 3 years later, frustrated employees, all of that. And what? Scrum? Or anything. But so it's a process. Yeah, right. It is a process, right? And so isn't that glorified? Isn't there a significance? Isn't there an importance given to it? Because it's real. Process is important. And so that's that. And then and then there's the unknown, by the way. There's like everything, the rest of the universe concocting, like making a decision for you. That I know what you want, but the rest of the aggregate, thinking about what you don't know, what you don't see, is that while this might be good for you or for your household, for your guru or for your ashram or for your religion or your nation, the rest it might hurt differently, and therefore not now, maybe later. So we're going to slow down. You will only get 97.8%, not 100%, or however. So the more open our mind is, the broader the view is, the more space we create for other possibilities to happen, and that we think that there must be a reason. I don't see it does not mean there isn't. I don't understand it doesn't mean there isn't, or that it's all stupid. It's just that I got to elevate myself to the peak when I will see the 360 degree. Otherwise, I'm only going to see maximum 180 degree as I'm climbing, right? So, or at the foothill, I just see this big lump, in front of me, or whatever is behind me, but not at all. So those were the 5. And in the next verse, he says that Sharira Vang Mano Bir, whatever you do, like the thoughts that you have inside the mind, the words that you speak, and the acts that you perform. And in Hindi, as I say, मन के विचार, वाणी का उच्चार, और शरीर का आचार, right? The thoughts in my mind, the words that I speak, and the acts that I perform. When I think of a thought 10 times, my experience, it inadvertently comes out of my mouth once. Whether about Asha, mom, 10 times, she's like, why does he do that? And then the 11th time, you're going to say it, stop doing it, don't do it. Because you've thought of it 10 times. And when I say it 10 times, do thappad lagaunga. You might say, like, chup bait, maar dungi. 11th time, you're going to smack him. And so the act also happened. And so the needle moves here in the thoughts. So he's saying that any of that, like all are under the influence of these 5. He never leaves us with any accountability. Doesn't say that, oh, therefore poor me or poor you. No, you can absolutely ruin. The entire universe can concoct for exactly that to happen. And you can absolutely veto it. As the performer said, nope, not on my watch. Because you got equal vote. And 80% doesn't cut it for 100% outcome to happen. And therefore it puts onus upon us as humans, only on humans, that we have the responsibility, that we have the accountability, that we have the ability, the choice, and the force, and all the resources that we need to make that choice. And then flip it. After exercising that choice, you just say, okay, well, I've delivered, I've executed, I don't control it. And that is how the famous words from the 2nd chapter, Karmanye, like in the 4th chapter also something similar comes, Karmanye vahi adhikaraste ma phaleshu kadachana, ma karma phalahetur bhurmate sangostva karmani. That, well, what you can do is do your best. That verse is, the only thing you control is do your best. And therefore, don't attach too much to the result, because you actually really don't control the outcome of it. But because you don't control the outcome, do not also disengage. That's the second half of that verse that is blatantly disregarded. Nobody pays attention to it, almost. And everybody's like, oh, yeah, you don't know the outcome. Karmaneva adhikaraste. They just sit and say, oh, well, I don't control the outcome. That's only half of the verse. First line. The second line says, but do not disengage. Mate sangostu akarmani. Because simply by the act of disengage, you're guaranteeing failure. And it connects with this 8:14, because its maximum will be 80%. And it has to, for perfection, it has to be 100%. Therefore, do not disengage. You've been put there for a reason in the battlefield. You're right in the middle of it, on just a little bit here on the side of dharam. And dharam, last time we defined, is nothing but upholding integrity, systemic integrity. Just system हमारे इर्द-गिर्द बनाई हुआ है. This is an intelligent system. It's a dynamically intelligent system. Pay attention to words. It's not just an intelligent system, a program, intelligently designed program. And it will always do that, because it's a dynamic intelligence, meaning it adjusts itself constantly. It changes depending on the circumstances, situation. It watches, it observes. For now, I'm calling it. You might as well call it God, or the Creator, or Krishna, or you, right? Because you're part of it. Me, Aham Brahmasmi. During the Dhyan, we said Tattvamasi. Whatever it is, we're part of it. We're inseparable, indivisible part of it. No choice. Absolutely. We are it. Essentially, look no further. Don't blame anyone else, or don't take too much credit for yourself either. And so, therefore, do not disengage. But when you engage, keep in mind, you're not going to control the outcome. There are these other 4 big Maharathis alongside you as well. Like he had 4 brothers behind him, right? Yudhishthira, he could have fought all he wanted, but if Yudhishthira would have said, well, I'll tell you what, enough killing, massacre, I give up my throne. He was the king. What could Arjuna do? If Yudhishthira walked across and said, imprison me, what could he do? Right? So, or if Bhim started to demoralize others, what could he do? So just like in a metaphorical sense, there were those 5. Arjuna could not take single-handed credit for it. The others had to participate also, and however they could. Maybe he was the best, but they also needed the king to be there, right? And not be imprisoned. Like that, keep in mind. So it's a very loaded concept, where he said that, remember, whatever you're thinking, whatever you're speaking, whatever you're doing is a result of that. Therefore, don't throw it, because what can I do? Because you are part of it, but don't completely own it, because there are others who are part of it also. And so the Gita, the beauty, the glory, the power of the Gita is in the balance. It's like the middle, regulated, moderated path, which it really enables, allows us normal people like you and I, or normal people, to still get to the other end while fulfilling, while doing it. And it doesn't require us to shun everything else, to stop everything else, and like, if we properly follow it. And that's the feeling behind Sharanagati. When Krishna says in the end, because Arjuna is frustrated. Now, who is going to keep all this in their head? All of this knowledge. It's taken us 12, 13 years. This is like 2.5 hours. He's got like, how? What do you want me to do? It's too much. What's the one thing? And he said, okay, well, align with me. Trust me. That because I am that. Right? Like essentially says that. And so therefore, here's the infallible by definition. Incapable of making a mistake. Impossible to err. And if you find a perfect one like that, why wouldn't you be half smart and just say, okay, I'm going to follow you. Because with her or him or it, you'll also be across. And that's the sort of the gravity of that message. Not so much that bend down on your knees and rub your nose on this and like smear the dust. The Sharanagati is not. It's not the surrender. It's the aligned part of it. Let in our new fashion here, let me pause and go around the process, and then we'll jump to the next part where he was saying, I thought that's where we'd left, that all three are always connected. So should we essentially re-engage with the Gita then? Okay. So I was pointing out, as doing the 12th chapter, that there are, in the Sanskrit grammar, in the Gita, there are adverbs, I don't know if that's the right way to call it, but pari or anu, like kama sankalpa varjita, like, or the pari and the anu adverb that they are, for example, it's like as if or almost like. So he stops short of like exacting that the expectation from us is not that exactly this, meaning only this. There is always qualifiers in the instruction, which to me is like there is a play left, there is a wiggle room left in his instruction, that realizing that I am not ready right now. I cannot run. It's going to take me some practice to get to that. And so therefore the pari and the anu, words like that, create that space that, yeah, but you're trying, like just like anuradha, for like parisamapyate, as if it is ended. Like Radha, like Anuradha is like similar to Radha, or parisamapyate, like almost done, as if done. You know how we say in while talking also, colloquially. Almost done is not done. He gets it, obviously, but almost done is also it's closer to done than not done.
Or he's trying to say that context and circumstances matter.
Exactly, yeah.
It's not just like...
Yeah. In the 8th chapter, for example, a good example of what I'm saying, I mean, how highly nuanced this scripture and the instruction is. Tasmat sarveshu kaleshu mam anusmara yuddhacha. This is a verse that comes in the 8th chapter, which means, therefore, at all times, remember me, keep me in the forefront, and also, but also fight. Right? So, like, and in the forefront, because in this case, literally he's standing in front of him, actually ahead of him, right? As I often say, this isn't a God who says, we're behind you, we're with you. Okay, don't worry about it, I'm with you, I'm behind you. This is a God who says, I'm in front of you. The arrows are going to hit my chest first. That joke aside, but in the word they're like, Mam anusmara. Smara would have been, just remember me, just chant my name the whole time. Chant and be happy. Like, but he realizes that in practicality, in a battlefield, while working, while driving, while cooking, you can't drop everything, just say like Krishna, 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 Krishna. But you could be anusmara. In the backdrop, I can keep God somewhere in my head while I'm doing whatever I'm doing in the front. That connection, the pilot lamp should still be on. And that anu qualifies the smara like that. as one example. And there are several examples like that. I really highly admire that beauty.
I'm just
The-
taking notes, by the way.
What's that? Oh, yeah,
Kavita, we didn't get to hear your
yeah.
perspective. Yes.
Well, you all said everything nicely. One,
That's a great question. The first time I've encountered it, my interpretation only, I can only share how I process it. I think that falls in the 20% unknown, that you cannot trace back to, like, why did this happen? Everything was perfect. How come this didn't happen? And there was something unknown that I don't know, that I cannot think of, and that could very well be because you started a trajectory at some point. It kicked someone and that wind's still blowing and it's coming back and suddenly hitting you now on your head. Could be one of those things. It could be several other things as well. I don't believe your prior karma fall in the you category as the performer. You is squarely you. Right now, dynamically, actively, how are you choosing to engage with the choices and the resources that you have? Are you doing your part? Well, I did, but it still didn't. मेरे कर्म ही ऐसे होंगे, फूटे कर्म. But there's already a provision made for that parking lot, the 20%, I think. Is that right? And so, in fact, that's the reason why you would want to be open-minded that, well, maybe it doesn't happen this way, because I don't know. Like, I don't know everything else that goes into it, right? So.
Also, people makes effort is very subjective.
Yeah, I mean, is the effort there? Is the conscious effort there?
Yeah.
So the consciousness, is there an actively conscious effort? Not so much how much. Was it like a banana leaf, a humongous leaf, or a little tulsi patta? Never mind that. But was there, and in fact he says, like, well, but was it given with the thought of me? Patam pushpam phalam tayyo me bhaktyam, me to me. Was I in your thought when you're doing this, or was this Panditji or the company for Satyanarayan Puja, or like what people are thinking while doing all of this? What was on your mind? In your mind, was I? And then in that case, never mind a drop of water, is it? Toyam is sufficient because I take it. I don't need it. But you've given, like he says to Sudama, you've given everything you could to me, therefore I'm going to give you everything I can to you. And like that's a whole lot more what he can give.
Would you say it is the intention-driven effort?
It's an absolutely yes. Intention totally matters in this also. But the effort also. That's again, it's not just the intention. Well, I really wanted this to happen. I really meant well. Did you do it? Did you try? It matters also. Well, I tried, but my heart wasn't in it. I didn't want it to happen. Therefore, I was haphazardous. Then that doesn't work either. It has to be both. Intentional effort.
I think just
Fall forward, as they say, right? That if you might fall, but you'll fall forward, which means that you're still ahead of where you started. I'm so glad that you reminded me. I forgot about the prayer aspect of it. 100% agree that prayer helps. In my view, in my learning, in my experience also, I would say that it's not that prayer cuts the past karma. It's more like it softens the blow. That karma will still play out. The momentum is there. But it's like, so for example, on Father's Day, Madhvi and I are going to do the sky jumping. Now imagine sky jumping without a parachute and with a parachute, right? So it's like, well, we're jumping in both instances, but at some point, about halfway through the parachute opens. It doesn't open right away, but it's going to soft land us, essentially, right? And so that was, it's like the prayer. And I agree that prayer is important, but I actually, in my observation, prayer is in every culture, in every religion, a very intense path, of the path of prayer, because it's internalized. It's like the immediate benefits are within our heart. Bhagwan sunega to sunega, nahi sunega to sunega, nahi pata nahi. Lekin we start feeling a little more hopeful, empowered, all of that as soon as we start praying, that maybe there is a possibility. Why am I even praying? Because there must be a possibility for something else to happen than what seems like will happen. And so that cracks open a ray of hope. So could not sing enough glories of prayer. Absolutely critical. Very important. Yeah, so.
I mean, I just want.
But then do you
And-
think of it as
I would suggest replacing punishment with consequence. It isn't so much that someone is punishing you. It's just a natural, inevitable consequence of actions. And also, Daiva being, it's not unknown because of my karma. It is the entire Daiva for all of us is the common and the same. If it's going to rain here on this house, it will rain in your neighborhood also. right? Like everybody's backyard party will get ruined, for example. It wasn't like you did something stupid in some lifetime, and therefore your 50 people have to suffer. So the way to think, one way to think of Daiva is the aggregate momentum. Because ultimately we're one, right? Like these questions come up when we start thinking that we're separate, we're individuals, we're different. It is the aggregate karmic reaction of the unknown. It is and the system is a super intelligent system, which is different from an intelligent system. Intelligent would be what we can comprehend, what we can wrap our brains around. It's a super intelligent, meaning the aggregate intelligence of us all together, it is above that. Therefore, that's why we cannot understand God with just like ज्ञान से नहीं समझा सकता ना भगवान. अपनी इतनी अकल से उसको वो कागज के पुंगले से पूरे, like we cannot see the entire sky with just a small little telescope. You can see it in parts, one at a time, but then you also have to leave the rest of it at all times. But you need to be as big as the sky to see the whole thing at once, and that's super. So it is the aggregate karma, but like Sanjay Bhai, you suggest that because it is super intelligent and super good, right? And I'm not just playing upon words, but super meaning like beyond. It is always for everyone, constantly striving for the best, like you said, outcome possible under those circumstances. That given everything, in your example of paralysis, it could be that in one shot, I'm like taking care of the next 7 lifetimes of suffering. Then I'm just going to pay it all forward one time. I don't know. It could be that. So in that I don't know is the releasing power. Like we talk during the dhyana, I was saying that I'm taking respite. I don't know. Being open and being available to it. That I don't know is that 20%. I don't know what, I don't know why, I don't know when, all of that. Because I have limited intelligence. There is a super intelligent one watching for the benefit of, it's called Ishtaka Bhagavan. He's the God of all. He's not my God or your God. He's not my well-wisher or your well-wisher. Last verse in the 5th chapter says, Surudam Sarva Bhutanam Gyatva Mam Shanti Mruchyati. This is the last line of the 5th chapter. He said, I am the best wisher of all. When you understand that, he says, the yogi understands it and becomes very quiet, Shanti, like peaceful. Because in everyone, I am also included. And there is a sense of control that, okay, someone superior, supreme, is in control of it. And then that from there on, the journey of trust began. That like once you have experienced it, you automatically have faith. Trust that whatever is right for me, and you're always doing your best, and you're also expecting, you know that whatever happens to me is going to be the best possible outcome. As horrible, as terrible it feels and appears, it was the best possible outcome for me. Looking back the eons and looking ahead eons, at this moment, this is the best for me for my quick journey. That's Shraddha. And behaving with that Shraddha is bhakti. And trusting that also, right? But there's so much jnana in it also. It's not inseparable. In today's 12th chapter Gita Yoga, I was suggesting it's important to bring it out here. Normally we hear everybody saying, Pandit ji, Guru, Saint, हमने 3 मार्ग है, ज्ञान मार्ग है, भक्ति मार्ग है, कर्म मार्ग है. You probably have heard, right? Someone might say there's also dhyan marga, yeah? The path of knowledge, the path of karma, and the path of devotion. But Bhakti Yoga, the name itself is Bhakti Yoga, 12th chapter, the smallest chapter, 20 verses, half of it is just like, it includes everything in Bhakti. It in fact says like, if you don't like this, do this. If you don't like that, do this. Maybe you can accumulate Gyan. If you can't do Gyan, like do whatever you want to do it in my name. If you cannot even do that, then just let go of the fruits of the outcomes of the result. If you can't do that, try meditating. So all of the paths come under bhakti because ultimately he elevates that the bhakti to the highest pedestal is the path of love. It's no longer just the bhakti yoga. And the point he makes is that mayeva, like anything you do, if you're doing it as an offering to me, if you're keeping me in mind, me as in the super system, for the good of all, for the well-being of it all, for upholding the integrity, for the system integrity, which is by virtue of God as the designer is God, then that is bhakti. That because you fall in love, you're actually loving. the system around you. Because whoever we love, we always want good and right and the best for them. By default, we only give it our best, right? And so therefore, if you've fallen in love with me, God says, in Bhakti Yoga, then you're automatically doing what you can as the best. And that's Bhakti. It's not separate from Gyan. It's not separate from Karma. There are not compartments that, oh, ye Gyani hai, ye Gyan Yoga karte hai. Oh, ye Bhakti hai, ye damru bajate rehte hai. Oh, ye Karam wale, ye soup kitchen jate hai. It really, the Gyani is doing in love of God, like accumulating Gyan. The Bhakta is, the devotee is doing Pool, Mala, Arpan in love of God. And the Karmi is serving the downtrodden in love of God. And so ultimately it all boils down to everything in love of God is that yoga, because you connected at that in the 12th chapter. Yeah. So it all subsumes, all dissolves in that. So we will do one more section and then we'll take it. So we'll jump to so this will be the 18th verse, the second part that I was saying. Jnanam geyam parigyata trividha karma chodhana karanam karma karteti trividha karma sangraha. I'll just do this one verse and pick up next time in the 19th. ज्ञाता ज्ञान और ज्ञेय ये तीन प्रकार की कर्म प्रेरणा है और कर्ता कारण तथा क्रिया ये तीन प्रकार का कर्म संग्रह है. So this whole chapter is kind of abstruse. On the surface of it, it either doesn't make much sense or like it makes some sense and you feel like you want to move on to it. Like just what I read in Hindi, everybody knows Hindi here. But what I just read probably didn't register a whole lot. Like, what did that mean? Gyan, karma, ye prerana hai, karma uska sangrah hai, all of that. We read in Sanskrit, we read in Hindi. This chapter took me the longest to decode the complex. Even that one verse that I said, like, the difference between Sanyas and Tyag, that feels so similar and synonymous. And why he constantly goes after the difference between them. For a while he dwells on it, the difference between. And so I wrestled with it, and finally it hit me. Similar to that, essentially what I want you, for now, just think about it this way. Essentially what he's suggesting is, they appear to be three separate. There are two, there's another interpretation which I will share in a moment. But the current one is that the knower and what's being known and the knowledge itself. That gap between the knower and what's being known, the object of knowing. Ultimately, there's only one. They're one. It's just that when I am on this end and I'm looking at what I want to know about, there is this gap, there's this thought that I don't know, therefore I want to know, therefore I'm going to follow the process of knowledge. It could be reading, it could be listening, it could be thinking, whatever is the process to know. And then when the object is known, suddenly the object is still the same, but the relationship has changed. There is no mystery, there is no intrigue, there is no confusion, there is no fear about it. All fear is fear of the unknown. No? Like in the dark, in your driveway, when you see a rope, this is an example from the scriptures, it looks like a big snake, and you just don't throw the trash, you just come inside, close the door quickly. In the morning we'll throw it, there is a big snake. And you open the door in the morning and it's still there. But you're no longer afraid. Because you see, you smile, yeah, this was a rope, I thought it was a snake. But in the dark, meaning ignorance, it appeared like what it was not, something fearful. And so you were afraid more of that than that itself. Suddenly the light, the knowledge dawned, and so you see it as what it is, and you're no longer afraid. Even if it was a snake and there was light on, you still would not be as afraid as you were afraid of the rope in the dark, even though it was a dead rope. Right? Because you know, okay, well, it's a snake. I at least know what to do with it, not to go near it, or stay away, or shoo away, or whatever, the knowledge. So when you know something, you sort of become one with it, and therefore you're no longer afraid of it. You embrace it. You feel more comfortable with it. The point here is that you actually already are. It's just that by thinking yourself, the way we're so conditioned, so programmed, as breaking away as separate individuals. I'm separate from this. And so when the spiritual knowledge dawns, this is like enlightened one, the Trikala, they know it all, the knower of all. So So just ponder on this thought in your own time, that whatever is being done and the doer and the process of doing, ultimately they're connected. Whatever gets accomplished, the performer and the performance and what it's performed, there is a single entity. We keep it separate. So that's one interpretation. And then the second interpretation, which is more elaborate in the Gita, in the subsequent verses here, is like the three types of those, like the sattvic, rajasic, and the tamasic. That there is but there too. So we came across this in the 17th chapter. That it isn't that there is a line drawn, a thick line drawn by Krishna or the Creator. In fact, he says, I don't mess with it. Repeatedly says in the Gita, I don't like that. Oh, okay, everything to the left of it is bad. And the second line, everything to the right of it is like super good. Everything in between is like a mixed bag. No, there's nothing ever anything like that. Or that these people, these sadhus, sant, gurus, swamijis, they're all good. And these gundas, like these thugs, they're all bad. And us, like normal people, we're mixed. He says, no. He says, the best of the best sadhu that has ever walked on this planet Earth has had some tamas in him or her. And the worst of the worst thug that you can imagine, apichet suduracharo sarvebhyo papakritam. This is a shlok that was like the worst, who has left no sin unperformed, who has done the worst imaginable sin, even, still has some goodness in him or her. It is impossible later on in the 17th chapter, if it exists, it has all three, period. It exists because it has all three. It would not even exist. It is there, and that's also empowering and humbling, right? Like there is no like absolute bad, or I can never be absolute good so long as I think of myself as a human or a body or limit. And like so long as I think of myself in the gunas, there is those three. Having said that, there still is a gravitational mass. On this side, there's majority, more proportion of good, more proportion of bad, and more proportion of confusion. Like unclarity, is it good, is it bad, is it right, wrong, sometimes there's that, right, the rajas part of it. And so now the subsequent several verses in the next 2-3 sessions would be distinguishing between the type of gyan, and the type of dan, the type of tap, and the type of yagya, all of those, like and you will see a common thread that goes through across all of that is that less of how it was done and more about the intentionality behind it. What was the intention with which it was done? Is it because tomorrow they will come, mere kaam mein aa jayenge, I'm going to scratch their back today and tomorrow they'll scratch my back? Or was it because no, they're hurting, therefore I'm going to scratch their back, like whatever, I don't know who they are, they're hurting parts. Or is it that you see they're bleeding and you choose to ignore it, like whatever, I don't care, I don't know who they are, and you walk past them. So those three examples would be sattvic, rajasic, tamasic. Like sattvic would be, well, it's obvious they're hurting, it's easy, I've got the time, I can scratch their back and then I move on, I'll wash my hands and move on, done. I don't know who they are, I don't want anything from them. I don't know if they can give me anything, and I can't even think of what I want from them. But it was hurting, and all. It's like rajasic, oh yeah, like, I know that's a minister, and if I help them now, tomorrow I'm make a phone call and they'll rescue me or whatever. That's a rajasic, same act of scratching the back. And then the third one, and so this was rajasic, the first was sattvic, the third one was like, it's obviously bleeding, hurting, you got the time, you have the ability, you're not late, like you help them a little bit and then move on. No, I don't know who they are, I don't care, I don't have time, I'm not wasting of all like that. Or I'm ignorant, negligent, that all falls in under the tamas category, that I either deliberately or indeliberately, I don't even pay attention, I'm like completely someplace else, negligent in other words, right? That falls in the tamas. So everybody, for example, in the example would be at some point all of us, I included, have ignored someone that I could have helped, and have helped someone that I did not need to and that I did not want anything from, and have helped with some string attached, some expectation. So I've done all three, right? The one who's talking right now. But I believe the one who's listening right now also has, because he says like, there isn't anyone. Like nobody was born absolute Shuddha Sattvic. I mean, there's only one example ever given of a Shuddha Sattvic in any scripture, and that was Shukamuni, the one who recited the Bhagavad. Not even his father, Vyasamuni. In the same Bhagavad it says, Vyasamuni was his father, is supposed to be the like an avatar of God. Was considered, he wasn't like absolutely pure. And even his father was not considered. And there is only one example given that he was. And therefore, no one could recite the Bhagavad like Shukamani could. No one could like be as poetic, as sweet, as effective, as perfect in the Bhagavad, which is the Bhagavad Puran, right? There's 700 verses, that has 18,000. And these are all two sentence verses. Many of those are 4 sentence verses. It's like 12. So it, again, a moment of humility and empowerment in the same instance. It humbles me to know that whoever I thought was bad, there is so much goodness also in them. I don't know. I haven't seen them does not mean it's not there. I haven't experienced them. Because the most like Beiman, what word would like, would also want their servant to be Mandar, right? The one who is, how would you say that, Madhi? Like the one,
Deceitful.
yeah, the most deceitful man you can imagine would want his secretary to be very honest, right? Like the one who keeps his own book. Why do you care? Why do you like the virtue of honesty when you yourself are so deceitful? No,
Everybody's thinking about one individual right now. Lately, sorry.
I wasn't, but now I am. You brought me there. So, but so because that is that there, right? Like that feeling of goodness, the purity is in the most deceitful man. Therefore, the deceitful man also wants to be free and does not want to go to prison, because that urge for freedom, that urge for aren't I good? No, I didn't do that. They're wrong. They're bad. They're like perpetrated. I want to look good because fundamentally, innately, somewhere, that feeling of goodness, the purity, and that it is higher, that it is righter, is there. Therefore, that's driving, even if I have to lie, hide, but I will want to try to appear as good. So that we will stop today's reflection there. That's coming up, the second part of it. Right? Yes, Ashay? Yeah. So, great question. There isn't, so perfect good would be, it's called Shuddha Sattva, purity. The good and the bad in the context with the Gita's filter is that the higher, the more I keep system integrity in mind, the more my actions are driven by what is the best for all, versus the more it is driven by what's the best for me alone. One is very limiting, very finite, very shrinking to this one person. The other is very broadening, very eliminating as much as. And why is that? Because the truth is the broad is only one. There is only one. And therefore so there is no absolute good or absolute bad in the material world. But the more I broaden my perspective, the more good or gooder I am being, by definition here, and the more I'm only shrinking and looking at my personal self-willed driven motive. Yeah. And the trouble with that, the problem with it, so the answer is no. The clear, unequivocal answer is no, because he was playing God. And here's how. He could snap the finger and kill everyone. Could he snap another finger and bring everyone back to life?
Yeah.
In that storyline? And so he decided without
You had the choice.
without fully understanding the consequences. Was he like the know-all? Did he realize what suffering it causes others, and why pick this over there? Was there any reason or rhyme or rationale to that?
But he, like,
Essentially, could he then? Why did he choose to live himself, like, or whoever he wanted, his own empire? Was it more driven by power?
Why did he live?
Like, why pick one over the other? Why pick him to live and not die?
Because he felt that he could do that to